At least it's better than me being crooked.
Testing. Let's go ahead and call the March 20th meeting of the Historical Preservation Board to order. You want to do roll call?
Yes. Let's do. Chair Grove,
Here.
Vice Chair Miller,
Here.
Board Member Price,
Here.
Board Member Field,
Here.
Board Member Clute,
Here.
Board Member Kastner, we believe may be coming late, and then Board Member Spratlin and Leidy are absent tonight.
Thank you. Do we want to go ahead and approve the minutes from the last meeting? Somebody want to make a motion?
Pam, I'll move to approve based on the recording secretary's certification, the February 22nd, 2017 action minutes for the February 22nd, 2017 regular meeting of the Littleton Historical Preservation Board.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Do we have any public comment?
And can we use the voting board next time? This time's fine.
Okay.
But next time.
Yeah, last
yep.
time it just wasn't working too well, but yes,
Okay.
we'll try.
Yeah, unless it's absolutely not working, please
Okay.
try and use the voting board.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Pam.
Good evening, Historical Preservation Board. My name is Pam Chadbourne. I live a block and a half from here, close to, 2 seconds is wrong. It's counting out, cool. So I wanted to talk tonight about maybe lessons to learn or to consider or things to do as a result of the decision on Littleton mixed use. And I do want to reiterate, I appreciate everyone's efforts on that. I appreciate that the applicant did revise their proposal between December and January and then February. That was great. However, I am convinced that this building is far too large in scale and scope for the small town center character that's described in our documents. So I want to thank board members Grove, Price, and Kastner for their votes. I think those were the correct votes. I'm going to say that, my relatives built the house that I live in 60-some years ago. And when I was a little girl, I watched the 65 flood. It was up by Essex House. So I'm not fixed to that image of Littleton, but I'm convinced that that historic character is an economic asset and a quality of life asset, and that we've pretty much lost it. I think I think we are historic in name only. I'm not the only one. When I walked around in 2013, a lot of my neighbors said, it's really over. There's really no historic merit left. There's little things here and there, but it's gone. So, still trying to be optimistic. I have some propositions, and I do have questions about the process. I had different expectations about the process, and the first one is that I think historic merit should have been considered first. Staff brought the proposal to planning board first. Why not get the COA first? And why isn't that clear in our process and code? Should that be? I don't know, but it's a question to ask, and I would like to know it. Then it can go to Planning Commission with your input to them. I'd also like to question the review of citizen input. It's my understanding, it's great that we finally got your addresses, emailed addresses on the website, but my understanding is it didn't go to you and you didn't get our inputs until you walked in. And that's broken, because I spent a lot of time and I wanted to hear your responses to what I had found. Who knows, maybe a vote would have changed had you had time to consider what all of us wrote. I'd also like to strengthen Historic Preservation Board. I think the historic downtown design standards and guidelines and the Littleton downtown design standards and guidelines need to be considered for updating. So I have more to say, but my time is up. I think there are lessons learned. Please, board, it may be too late, but maybe we can save something. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam. Any comments? Okay. That's all we have for public comments for general. General business, Dennis?
There is none.
Okay. Let's go ahead and open the public hearing. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the process, but we will go ahead and open it. We'll hear from staff, then we'll hear from the applicant or their representative. After that, there'll be public comments or questions where the public can come to the microphone and they have 3 minutes to talk. And then the applicant can address any of those issues if they want to. Then we go ahead and close the public hearing. We have our board discussion, and then we have our motion, either to approve, deny, or postpone. And then those of you that are here for that public hearing are free to leave, or you can stay and hear the rest of the meeting. So let's go ahead and open the public hearing, and Dennis.
I apologize, I need to pull this up, and I'm not finding it. I know it's here someplace. There we go. That looks better. Okay. This is a continuation of a public hearing that you had on November 20th, 2016. As such, you've closed the public comment, and this is just deliberation by the board. You had very specific comments in response to the public comments that you'd heard and also what we've seen in writing. And so what you have in terms of the draft.
Dennis?
Yes.
Can you speak into the microphone or turn
sure.
it on? We can't hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you, Dennis.
Sure. So, So this is, the draft that you have, the draft that's online includes the comments that you made as well as responses to that. And I'm going to go through just generally what those were in terms of categories of comments. If you see something that was not included, we certainly could include that as we're going forward. If you do recommend approval tonight to the Planning Commission, we will actually be able to make those changes and take that modified draft to the Planning Commission itself. Kim and I were talking earlier, we know that this is not a final draft in terms of edit, and so we will continue to edit. If you have additional comments, please do, and then we will have a formal edit after Planning Commission does approve it. So we'll go through and make sure that actually the language is correct and that it really makes sense. So there, we can change that as long as we're not changing content. So what you're really looking at tonight is content. Have we addressed all the issues that you had? Are we addressing all the issues that were brought up by the residents who commented and that you then went ahead and approved in terms of what should be in the draft?
So if we have edits, we should email those to you, like?
Email those to me now and I'll get them in the draft before we send it to Planning Commission, so, okay.
Okay. And then they'll do it finally.
Right, and they'll see those, and then we'll continue to edit until we get to Planning Commission, and then if they have additional things they want to add to it, we can do those as well afterwards. At that point, we'll send it to the consultants who will do their final edit on it too, and actually put it in a format that is a little nicer than what I did. I did this myself, but I think what they do will have a little higher quality to it, so you'll have a really nice draft. The first major change that we made was the table of contents. You wanted the subcategories to be added to those, so we went through, added the subcategories. So everything that actually has a bold or capitalized title to it as a subcategory of those major chapters, we've put on this list. So as you can see, it's a fairly extensive list, but I think it makes it much more user-friendly. You can go through and find more specifically what you're looking for.
Okay, so this is really under general business and not the COA, right?
No, this is not the COA, this is the public hearing, continuation of the public hearing for the Louthan design guidelines, which has to go
Okay.
through public hearing as well.
Okay.
Okay? The second major content was you wanted captions added to all the photos. So I've gone through and added captions. So you have a little bit of explanation in terms of here's what it is, and here's kind of what the impact is on the neighborhood and why we've included this photograph as an example. And this one is fun, for example, because, again, this is a mail-order house. So I think it just shows the popularity of the arts and crafts, the craftsman movement in the late teens and 20s of the 20th century. And then we also added definitions to the building glossary. We had the categories before, but not definitions. So this includes the definitions on all the pages. So what you've seen too, just by adding more text and more definition, so the page numbers have changed. We have less information on some pages than we had before because of that, or at least one category instead of two. For example, you'll see that again when we get to the district resources. Instead of having 3 houses, 3 addresses, we have 2 because we've added garages, we've added additional photographs, we've added additional text based on what the board looked at last time.
Dennis, could you give us the page numbers as you go through?
Oh, sure.
Would that be, and then we can find them quick?
And
22.
22?
22, yep. And I'm going through just numerically, so, and I can go through this again too. And we can also go through the document page by page if you prefer, so. The other one, big one was we dropped all the boxes that were non-compliant alterations. The board felt that that was confusing to people. And we want to make sure we went through and made sure that we had do nots for everything rather than include them in the boxes. So we have do's and do nots for each suggestion. And so those are included instead of the boxes.
And those pages are, I'm sorry.
Let's see. All right, let's see.
Doesn't that start like 33?
I think so. Let me bring.
Oh, no, wait a second. Well, yeah, it starts 33. And then the do's and don'ts start on 35.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that, again, that is, yeah, page 34 is actually where the first box was removed. And then we had boxes kind of throughout the next couple sections, but there were no boxes, non-compliant boxes prior to this, but we did take them all out of the document.
And those items are addressed in the do's and the do not.
Yes.
They took all those little gray boxes
Yeah,
out.
I remember the gray
If you remember,
box.
yeah, the discussion, I think the neighbors brought up the concern about the garages and the outbuildings. It was very confusing whether or not you're supposed to do them or not. So I think it's much clearer now. And then we also added additional language regarding the voluntary guidelines, the paint guideline, and we have other guidelines in there too, which are not part of the purview of the staff or the board per the city code, but are really were added at the request of the neighbors. They wanted to know what colors were used and what colors should we be looking at, what should we be looking at for landscaping and driveways and things that we do not have addressed in the code. And so we've added those in as well, and I've added additional language just explaining that these are voluntary. And again, the policy question for the board is, does the Historical Preservation Board recommend adoption of Loudoun Heights Historic District Design Guidelines? If you do approve the resolution, it will then go to Planning Commission, and per code, Planning Commission has the authority to adopt the design guidelines throughout the city, all design guidelines for Littleton. So that's the process at this point. You are in charge of putting forward something that you are happy with or proud of, and you think that we can produce and take to the Planning Commission for review. So, okay. You want to go through specific things? Yeah, Kim.
Well, I just had one suggestion, and it came actually from someone who didn't really know where this was, this area was, and that was to have a north arrow
Great.
on maps and even the aerial photos.
Great.
So
So
that
that's
they can
on page
orient.
7, for example, of
Yeah.
the 7 and 8.
8,
okay?
for
Good.
instance.
Yes, they should have them. That's I'm remiss for not putting those in. So, Andrea, who knows maps much better than I would agree completely. Okay.
And the other is a question, just for my own edification. I've seen every possible spelling of Pebble Dash in here. Is it Pebble Dash one word? Is that the correct usage?
I did look it up and tried to correct it. I don't remember what the response was. I think it's hyphenated, as I recall, but I will confirm that. Just okay, because we did have that problem. I agree. Okay. Others, Kim?
A general comment, I think the layout on this is very clean and
Oh, good.
accessible. There's a lot of white space, which I really like. I mean, it's just, you can flip through. It's a nice document, I think.
Oh, good, good.
Okay. Anything else?
I've been listening to Kim and lost my thought, but all of the concerns that the homeowners had, the Loudoun Street homeowners, they've been addressed in here, and that's all.
Yes and no, and I think Tom Smithwick, for example, has some concerns that were still in here, and some of that, for example, we had a question about the insulation going into the walls, and I did pose that to the consultants, and I can beef that up in here in terms of what the response is, because typically you think putting that into the walls may be a problem for moisture getting into the walls over time with that. And the question is that true in Colorado? You still have a lot of humidity in the house, even though it's a dry climate. And I'll ask them again for more detail on whether or not they think we should recommend something like that. Typically, my understanding is the answer is no, don't do it. Instead, focus on the ceiling, crawl space, walls and windows, doors and windows. So,
Okay, but everything else, pretty much, the homeowners are,
I think so. I think Tom had one other question, and I'll check on that one as well, in terms of things that they had brought up, and I'll just confirm that and go back through the notes from the consultant too. So,
and I agree with Kim. I think it's a great document. I think it's easy to read, easy to find things.
great. And we will.
Be a real benefit for the homeowners.
I hope so. And we've got 2 new homeowners in the area who've been really loyal about using these, and it's great to be able to have them to produce and actually share with people, because it really does help inspire them in terms of what seems to make sense. So.
So we're able to share the draft with him?
I'm sorry?
You shared the draft with the new homeowners?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
I also found it amusing that the paint advertisements that were used here, the period paint advertisements, were touting the quality lead.
Exactly.
I thought that was kind of neat.
Have I covered that well enough? Is it because we had concerns last time that it may be confusing to people in terms of, is this current, is this not current, what is this stuff? But so I put the caveat up at the top, the note, and then also tried to do something similar down for each of the paint samples. If you think additional language would be helpful, I'll do that as well.
That was fine.
Dennis, can you elaborate on how these guidelines will be given to the current owners and future owners for years to come?
We have the email address for each of the homeowners. We also get a hard copy to them, and it also will be online. We have under littletonplans.org, we have the design guidelines currently as one of the categories, and we also under Littleton Plans and littletongov.org, we also have a location for design guidelines. So we have the design guidelines for downtown and for the historic properties already posted online with the city's website, and we'll add these to that.
So how are they going to be, my concern is we have design guidelines in our neighborhood, but they're not conveyed very well to future people coming in. And that's where we run into problems.
I think it is too, and I think the advantage that Loudoun has is it's so small, and it's one block, 2 block faces, 17 properties, and so it's so easy for them to communicate. It's much more difficult, I think, for Arapahoe Acres or Hills to do that, and because they're voluntary guidelines for Arapahoe Hills rather than mandatory, it's a little easier to lose those along the way. We did send hard copies of those to all the property owners initially when they were first approved. And we do have those online as well. So those are on the city's website. But I've had calls from realtors and from owners who did not know they existed.
Right.
So, it's kind of a combination, I think, of us working with the neighbors as much as we can in terms of kind of word of mouth and just making them available. Other than that, we don't have any record of when we get new renters, new owners. So we don't have any way of actually knowing what the trigger is for that. We could periodically, I suppose, provide some kind of notification or something to people, kind of like we do on other things. It's possible.
Are those properties flagged with the building department? So if somebody comes in and wants to do any alterations or pull a permit,
They are not, because it's a national district rather than a local district. And so, again, because they're voluntary guidelines and we have no authority over the review of those, they are not flagged. And so when they go to the building department, there's no notification of that. And I'm meeting with the building department either this week or next week, inspectors, to go through these, once, if you make a decision on them. And I will bring up Arapahoe Hills. That's a good thought, just to let them know that there are voluntary guidelines for that.
I'm not speaking specifically to our neighborhood. I just want to make certain the pitfalls, what's happening in our neighborhood, aren't going to happen.
Right. Yeah, I think we're in a little better shape because these are flagged. So the houses are flagged, the inspectors are aware of it, the front desk is aware of it. And the neighbors, again, because there are only 17 houses, it's a very cohesive, very highly communicative neighborhood. So
I just want to clarify. So you're saying these homes will be flagged because it's a local.
Right. These are, as well as the properties on the Main Street District, and individual landmarks are all flagged.
Another question about a potential home buyer. You could purchase a home and close on that home without being told or handed these guidelines. Is that correct?
That is correct. What you will be told is that you're in a local historic district. So that goes with your title. So when you do a title check, that will show up. And so you'll know you're in a district, and your realtor or you hopefully will have a sense of what that is.
So the onus is on the home buyer to get the
Yes.
guidelines.
Typically, it's that due diligence in terms of, and in a neighborhood this small, the neighbors are watching too, and the people who are selling houses are very good in terms of letting people who are buying the house know that as well. So it's more difficult, I think, in a larger environment than that, but yeah, in this case, it's true.
Is it possible, and maybe the attorneys can address this, to record those and have them come up on the title? Search the actual guidelines?
I don't know, that's a good question. Yeah, you can check with the
I don't
county
know.
clerk and see, yeah.
So that when they get there, the title work, it will automatically come up. I don't know if it's possible if we record the entire document.
I don't know, it's a good question, I don't know. It might be, or at least a link. Absolutely, so let me.
That might be something to look into,
yeah.
and that way
I'll talk with
they're
Our
notified.
attorneys and also the county clerk and see, yeah.
Yeah,
So, good thought.
might see how that would work.
Once they're adopted, Dennis, then they will be mandatory?
Yes,
Okay, then I think you can record them.
you can, what, I'm sorry?
You can record this
Oh, the
as a
full thing,
document
okay, oh, really,
against
okay,
the
good,
title.
okay, good.
It's much like any other easement or anything that might affect the
Okay,
title.
that's a great thought.
And
Okay,
then,
good.
then it's there.
So what does that mean?
Well, if
That
it's
it will be
recorded,
flagged?
then when title work is provided, then this document will show up as
Okay.
an exception.
It's like homeowner association documents. are
Home association
recorded.
documents,
They come
covenants,
up.
right, exactly, yeah, good point.
So I don't know why this would be any different
Okay.
than that.
Okay, so it will show up. Good.
We haven't done that, to my knowledge, I don't think, I'll check with Andrea, I don't think we did that with the Main Street, but let me find out if we did. Okay, good.
Anything else? Since we don't have an applicant, we go straight to the public hearing, right, Brandon?
No, you've done your public hearing is closed. You
Oh, no,
closed the public-
we have public comment.
I'm sorry?
We have public comment.
Oh, right.
So, but
No,
we
you
don't
don't.
have an applicant in this case.
We-
So-
Yes?
Yes, you're right.
Oh, you're right, we do have public.
yes, yeah, we have
okay,
two people.
great. Okay, sorry about that, all right.
Yes,
all right.
so
right.
if we have nothing else for Dennis, we'll let our public, so the first person that wanted to speak was Tim Smithwick? Tom. Can you come up? Yeah, we have to do a formal. So you don't want to speak? Why don't you come up and say your name and address and all that stuff and make it formal?
The name is Tom Smithwick. The address is 5678 South Louthen Street. And the point I wanted to bring up was that at our very first meeting over a year ago, one of the other homeowners had brought up I guess the consternation faced in terms of the building department and with historic. And to just say, hey, do we get things coordinated? If I heard correctly, Dennis was saying that he's planning on meeting with the building department next week. And so that was that.
The trick will be as the inspectors turn over, we have to kind of do it on an ongoing basis to make sure they're aware.
Okay.
Yeah, and Dennis talked about that.
That's why I wanted to make certain that we're flagged, because as years pass, people forget and
Okay.
staff changes, and I know that was one of your comments early on, and one of the reasons behind these guidelines. So I just wanted to make certain that they're tied to the property moving forward.
No, so that was it.
Did you have something?
I just wanted to clarify that, yes, since that came to staff's attention, we have an electronic database of all the properties in Littleton, and so we can keep it in that function, and so it's been added, and that's the system that we use for permits, any type of application. So it'll be a really good way to, the information is in there now so that it'll track it throughout the lifetime from here on out.
And that's Louthen, does that pertain to?
It would only pertain to the historic properties that are a requirement based on the city. It's either been a landmark, it's in the designated district, or in this case, Louthen, because these will be adopted and required guidelines.
So Louthen, it's a different situation with
So
Arapahoe
not
Hills.
voluntary stuff, but it'll be for the required. But we can certainly look into the other ones where it's voluntary, to just give people a heads up that that's the case.
Maybe that's something we should put on the agenda for the future. Okay. Matthew Wilson?
Yeah, my name is Matthew Wilson. I'm a homeowner at 5627 South Loudon Street. I'd just like to say thank you to Dennis and the city staff and the Historic Preservation Board for all the work they did to improve this second major draft. I think it's a much better document than it was when we saw it the first time, and I'm glad the additional photographs as well as all the information that you all added and that were added by the public comments. I'm particularly pleased to see that the non-historic alterations that have happened in the building were left in. I was particularly concerned about that because I know one of our neighbors who's a historic architect felt the buildings spoke for themselves, and I felt that he's a historic architect. He can read a building very easily. I don't think the average homeowner would get that same information, and I think some people might feel it's poking at certain things that don't fit into the neighborhood, but I think overall, when you look at those broad comments, it helps homeowners make the correct decisions when they're thinking about working on their house and what they should look for, the mistakes that were made in the past, and how to not do it in the future. I think that's true in history. If you don't learn from history, you're condemned to repeat it, so I'm really glad that was left in. As far as notification, when things are flagged, I know that to be true because I replaced my hot water heater in November, and the permit couldn't go through without physically being picked up by the plumbing company and brought to the house. It couldn't go through electronically, and of course, that's an interior improvement that, replacement that had nothing to do with the historic nature of the homes themselves, didn't alter any historic fabric, but it did require him to go pick up that permit and bring it to me to make sure. So if that works for the other changes that are taking places to the homes that might involve historic fabric, that probably will work really good. I'd also like to say, it's been 13 years since we started this process. I'd love to say that we had more neighbors show up, but I think a lot of them had, one, they're very busy like everybody is these days, but also I think it's been such a long process since we began this to get to historic design guidelines that some of them I think have given up and think we're never going to finish them. I bet Dennis feels that way too. But I do think we're going to get them done, and I know with the consultants that worked on it, I'm hoping that the final draft is even more polished than what you're looking at now, and I'm very proud of all the hard work and input from the neighbors, and I want to thank you all for everything you've done to make this possible. I think it'll be a great document. To answer your question too, we do, whenever anybody new moves in, we bring them a hard copy of the historic history of their home that was done about the neighborhood at the very beginning, and we also make sure to drop off hard copies and remind them about meetings or upcoming issues through our mailing list, because it is just 17 houses, 1 block long. It may not always be that way, but I hope it will be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Since we don't have an applicant, Dennis, is there anything you want to say in response to what the public said? Pardon? We don't really have an applicant, so I didn't know if...
First need to ask if anyone else wants to make comment.
Oh, I guess nobody else signed up, did anybody else?
Right, but I think just
just
ask,
ask
there's
if-
just ask in case
Just ask if
someone-
anybody else wants to, even though they
Oh,
can
if
sign up.
anybody else want to make a comment? Okay. Oh, okay. Would you like to come up before Dennis?
Ron Wincoop,
Address.
5667 South Loudon Street.
Thank you.
So I wasn't, I was going to say something, but then I talked to Tom, and it seemed like I didn't need to say something, but now I think I do, because these are going to be mandatory. I suppose the guidelines or and what I'm concerned about, and what my wife is concerned about, is that in that document, it says there can be no external lighting. In other words, we can't light our sidewalks. And so, unless I'm unclear about that.
We probably need to look that up.
We have kind of a non-conforming, kind of a Victorian light that we put out because we were having problems at certain nights seeing the sidewalk. And it's just plugged in. It's not hardwired or anything. It's just like a large, light that you would put, to prevent stumbling, and except it is kind of big. And
Where would lighting be in this document?
It's under defining features on page 50, 51.
Can we hold discussion until after the public comment is finished, though, so we can
Okay.
maintain the
Yeah.
process?
All right. So, yeah, keep going, and you have your 3 minutes, or
Yeah,
you'll start
so
getting
that
that.
really was my only point. I just wanted some clarification on that, to see, is it really true that any kind of exterior lighting for safety or just to illuminate the area around the front of the house is something that I might have to not have in the future, according to what I read in this.
Okay.
So it's just a clarification, so I
Thank
would
you.
know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Brandon, do we want Dennis to discuss that, or wait till the public hearing's closed?
Dennis can make, as the city is the applicant, Dennis can make any response that he'd like to. Once that is finished, then we can close the public hearing, so.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, if you look on page 50, we have the same caveat that we had earlier, because these are not covered by the city code in terms of what is under the authority of the board or staff to review. So again, this category is a set of voluntary guidelines. We do have do's and do nots, and if you look down at the bottom of page 50, exterior lighting includes porch lights and city street lights. They're talking about kind of what this is, and then over on the do's and do nots, again, down at the bottom of page 51, do not install light fixtures in the front yard, and do not install unguarded light fixtures in the front. And again, these are voluntary in terms of, here's the existing character, here's the historic character, they don't have that kind of lighting, and so we recommend that you don't. But again, it's a voluntary recommendation. And do preserve original exterior light fixtures was the other.
And do what?
Do preserve the existing exterior light fixture, these are exterior
So
light
that
fixtures.
doesn't say he can't, right? It's just
To
he's
answer
not-
his question, the lighting that he's requested or wants to keep is not a mandatory requirement.
That is correct. Absolutely.
Yes, and it just says, do not install light fixtures in the front that are incompatible with the character and historic nature of the neighborhood. I would agree with that. That doesn't say you can't
It is not.
install them. They just need to be compatible with the historic nature.
So that
again-
would be the recommendation.
And again, the whole category is voluntary, so.
Anything else that you wanted to address from the public comments before we close the public hearing? Okay.
No, I think I'm fine, thank you. Because Tom and I've talked, and I talked a little bit before in terms of addressing his concerns and getting more information. If we need to put more in here, I will, so, okay.
On the lighting issue, or,
The installation is the one I was
On the
thinking of, wall
installation?
Yeah, so.
so you are going to put more information?
No, I just need to get a better answer for Tom and for the other
Okay.
neighbors, I think, so.
So it's a matter of responding to him?
Correct.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, let's go ahead and close the public hearing, and we can have our discussion on whether we're ready to approve these or not. So comments on the content? We've talked about insulation. I think the lighting, is there any other comments that we need to make in terms of content?
No, I think Dennis addressed the questions that I had, so I think the content, in my opinion, is great.
The only concern I have is what Kim was alluding to earlier. It's a great document and it's a great improvement, but it's still not there. And I sort of want to see the final before we put our stamp on it, with all the typos taken out and all the spacing and all that pieces. So can we,
We can continue it as one option. If we're just making minor, non-substantive changes, you can make your recommendation to approve it. We can fix those without having to redo this process. If the changes you're looking for are something more substantive, we'd have to come back again, even after your approval, and reapprove the document.
So,
If you're just talking about typos and things like editing, I don't feel that needs to come back to the board.
As long as we're talking about typos, minor, non-substantive changes, you can approve it now, those can be fixed, and we wouldn't have to come back.
I don't know, how do you feel about it, Kim?
Well, I have a concern about that. There are a lot of typos. There are artifacts from when you were moving stuff around in the word processing program. Pebble Dash is spelled every way you could possibly spell Pebble Dash. And quite frankly, that's pretty unprofessional. And these are going to live forever. They're going to be part of the city's archive. They're going to be, this is a wonderful neighborhood. They deserve a wonderful document. And it's not just a few things, it's a lot.
And I would just like to add that, just for your understanding, this is a recommendation to Planning Commission. This is not approval of the final document. So those changes can be made. What you see before you today, if these minor changes will be made, was not what's going to be seen for eternity.
So what is our role tonight? Are we going to recommend that this be forwarded to?
To Planning Commission, that's your role here tonight, to make the recommendation, the document go forward to Planning Commission in its substantive form it is in now.
And can we kind of make that recommendation include the fact that this needs a pretty substantial proofread and edit, that it's not there yet?
Yes, you can do that, and/or if you want, we can bring it back. It's up to you all to make that
You
decision.
know, I really would like to see it.
The one thing I would add to this, I'm just asking Dennis now, so it's not fair, but I think the question about the insulation, I also feel that I'm not sure that that's necessarily, or I would like for staff to talk about that so we can work through it to see if you want some changes around that, because I'm quite frankly, I'm not sure what we're offering.
I understood, Dennis, you correct me, that it was a matter that you were going to keep what was in there about insulation, but just have a response to the one property owner. Was that?
Exactly, but we could put more language in here, and I think it might be a good idea to actually do that. So we certainly could add more specifics about that. I did get language from the consultants, response to the question we had last time, so we do have that. And if I recall, we didn't include it just because, and I guess we should probably do as a do not, I think. It really came down as a do not, so we could certainly include that. Makes sense.
So that probably wouldn't be very extensive if it's just
no.
another do it. Okay,
Just
so then we
have
do
to
that.
add that.
And then can we go ahead, this is a suggestion, I don't know if the board would agree, to go ahead and let Planning Commission see it, but before it's published, that we see the final after all edits?
No, I think we're talking about doing language change, substantive language change. I think we need to continue this. Legal's recommendation would be to continue it, make those changes, have you look at it again, hopefully fixing all the typos that you've identified.
Okay, before we send it to
Before you
planning.
give it to Planning Commission, so that the whole process has been maintained.
Okay.
So we're trying to create a whole new process, which has not been envisioned by the code, so.
I mean, I don't know if other people agree with Kim and I, or,
It's sounding like if they're going to add some substantive language of insulation, that it's pushing it
Right,
towards
because
continuance.
otherwise, if you will, otherwise, if we make substantive changes after a recommendation, we'd have to come back here anyways, from what I'm hearing. So it'd be legal's recommendation that it be continued if indeed substantive language concerning insulation is going to be done.
okay, so can we, do we want to do a continuance? I mean, how does the board feel?
I think the language on the insulation doesn't affect how the properties look. I think that's our privy here. As far as typos and that, I think the process has gone on long enough. I hate to see, I mean, they've been working on it for 13 years. We want to keep continuing this till all the Ts are crossed. I mean, I think we've done our job here, and I think we can pass it on and keep the ball rolling.
Margie?
And I think I agree with Paul. I don't want to hold it up a whole nother month, over typos. Really.
Well, what I'm hearing is if we're adding information about insulation, that it's going to kick it back anyway?
Yes, I mean, if indeed staff wants to move forward on changing that language, if indeed that language is changed, it'd have to come back. So if you make a recommendation for approval today, it's the substantive nature of the document, including the language for on installation as it exists now, will be maintained going forward unless you want it to come back.
It's going to end up being a voluntary
makes a difference,
recommendation, because it is, as Brandon said, we're talking about the exterior, we're not talking about the interior of the building. In this case, it's really the structure, it's not how it looks. So, be a voluntary recommendation, we'll have to stick it in there.
Do you have a,
Sure.
Dennis, do you have a draft of what you're going to put in?
Yeah, we could do it now, so you could just, add that as a condition for recommending approval.
I know this is not right, but I'm less concerned about the insulation than I am about the whole document.
Well, I have to say that, this board is not in the business of designing buildings for applicants that come here requesting a COA. We're also not in the business of editing and proofing documents. I do not want to proofread this document, but I want it made clear that those changes do need to be made. Michael?
Yeah, I agree. I think, I don't think Kim was born when we first started, the homeowners first started to look at this. So, yeah, I'm with Paul. I think let's clean it up and move on.
Yeah, I mean, I will add that, it was great to have the neighbors here, and it seems like that they support it, that makes me feel good about the content. If they're, in approval of it, great. I guess I'm just hung up on whether or not the whole insulation thing, but if it's going to be voluntary anyway, then.
If I may, it's voluntary.
And Dennis, you said we could make a condition if we approved it.
Say that you want to add that.
Condition
Condition to your motion
Conditioned on
that we add that
Yeah.
language.
Okay.
We don't know what it is, and I'm not even sure where it goes, because it's a voluntary recommendation. It's talking about the interior of the wall. We talk about the materials for the exterior. We talk about stucco and wood and brick. We don't talk about insulation anywhere. So it's a whole different category that we would need to create to talk about it. But we could do that.
If you want, if you want to do a condition of approval regarding insulation, we'd have to have the exact language. As you can't just say, go forth and make a condition. We'd have to hammer out the language right now and include that as part of the approval.
Yeah. Dan, you had language last time, or you had a thought last time in terms of insulation. Can you talk a little bit more in terms of what's your experience?
No, I was going to ask you what the comment was for the insulation.
So unless we have language on insulation, we cannot
Correct.
say that that's a condition of motion.
Yeah.
You have to state exactly what you would want typed into the reports.
And the reason for that is that you'd be delegating your authority as the board to staff, which is constitutionally impermissible, so.
So it looks like it's now either we put the insulation in, right, and then it's going to come back to us, or we don't put insulation in and we just send it on. I mean, isn't that what we're looking at?
Or you continue it.
Pardon?
Or you can continue it to a date certain, which I think it reflects your first choice.
Getting into the weeds, what's the issue with the insulation? Wall insulation, roof insulation?
That's what I'm hearing, and I don't see where it affects the historic look of the property, whether you put insulation in the wall or not, so I'm not certain why we're even
I think it all comes
ruling
back
on
to, did we listen to the homeowners and did we take it into account, all their suggestions? And there was the one that we didn't include in here.
The problem with that whole topic is there's varying opinions on it in Colorado. And for us to I'm not comfortable making a decision for a homeowner. And when it comes right down to it, it's going to be voluntary. So I would say just omit that from the document, and the homeowner can then consult with an architect or an engineer of his choice for that recommendation. Our purview is what the property looks like, not the thermal value of the wall.
So not worry about the insulation and not include it? Is that what we're kind of saying? So it looks like we're ready to approve it, right? I mean, is that what we're leaning towards?
Just send it on to Planning Commission.
Send it on to Planning Commission. Can we put something in there about the editing?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. And there is language currently, I was thinking that there was, on page 59, there is language about the insulation. It's the bottom one under sustainability. It says, do not insulate wood frame buildings that were not originally insulated without appropriate vapor and air barriers. So you can do it, but you've got to have those air barriers in there. Again, these are voluntary guidelines talking about how do you maintain these. Barriers require removal of exterior materials, which is not recommended since significant damage can occur to your historic house. So again, as Paul was saying, it's kind of a choice of the homeowner. You can do it. It's quite the project because you end up having to take the siding off to get to that wall. Or either that or the interior walls to get to that, to get in there. And it's not worth it in terms of R factor. What you're adding to the house. Again, focus on the doors, the windows, the ceiling, and the crawl space. But we do have
It
that
says
language.
this is voluntary.
Right.
I don't see the
Is
need
that
to
good
change
enough?
anything, yeah.
Do you
That's my
think that
opinion.
that would, that the homeowner that suggested that would find that adequate?
I think so. Again, because it gives you some leeway, and Tom and I've talked about it too, and he's had the same experience. It kind of depends on who you talk to, as Paul said, in terms of, is this a good idea or not? But generally what the consultants did say is that because it's so difficult to do, it can do some real damage in terms of how you actually have to get that insulation in the walls.
So it's something they need to do some research on and get it.
Research in terms of their house and,
Opinion.
and what's available, so yeah.
Where's the motion? What page is it on?
It's right here.
Page 6, Pam.
Oh, page 5. Well, does somebody want to go ahead and make a motion? And before we do, keeping in mind what Kim and I had talked about in terms of that it's edited before published.
Why don't you have Kim make the motion?
Do you want to make the motion, Kim?
Where is the motion?
This is the very last of the staff communication.
I have it in.
Okay, I like this. Okay, I'll make the motion.
Okay, go ahead.
This is a nice short one. I like this. I move to approve HPB Resolution 03-2016, recommending Planning Commission adopt the Loudoun Heights Historic District Design Guidelines, subject to a final proofreading.
Legal would suggest we not do that because it's ambiguous as to the final proofreading. We would prefer you just give staff direction to do a proofreading and then make the motion without that condition.
So how do you give staff direction to do that?
That we hereby direct staff to give before you make the motion, to give this document a thorough proofreading before it is passed on to Planning Commission.
I would add, do a thorough proofreading and make the changes
Yes.
in the final
Yeah.
document.
So however you'd like to word that, just, the planning board hereby direct staff X, Y, and Z.
Does she have to withdraw her motion then?
Yes, please.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, so now we have to make a directive to staff that before this is passed on to Planning Commission, that it's proofread by professional editors and all changes are implemented.
I like that.
Okay, thank you. Now we can make our motion.
Okay. I move, yes. I move to approve HPB Resolution 03-2016, recommending Planning Commission adopt the Loudoun Heights Historic District Guidelines, or Design Guidelines, period.
I second it.
Full stop.
Okay, and then we want to use the voting.
Any discussion?
Yes.
We have a second?
I second it, yeah.
Okay, so now up is yes, down is no.
Any discussion?
Oh, is there any discussion? And most of our discussion ahead of time. Okay, why don't we go ahead and vote? Nothing's working.
Near your base of your microphone, it says vote and display. Switch over to display.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, missing a
It
couple.
looks like, oh,
Okay. So,
all right, so the vote is unanimous and the motion carries.
yes, thank you. And now,
Okay.
all right. So now we move to our second public hearing, and I think you were here for the process. Just so you know, as we go through the process, if somebody does come and speak, which we have nobody planning on speaking from the public, that you get 3 minutes, and that you'll get a little red card when your time's up. So let's go ahead and open the public hearing for HPB Resolution 07-216, the resolution to approve the COA for the Bachelor A building. Dennis?
Great. The applicant, again, is out of town this month, and so has asked that we continue that to the April meeting, so it will be to a date certain again. So it's April 20th, I believe. So it
Okay.
should be in your resolution, so you should have it there.
Oh,
Part of your staff.
so we need to,
You need to have a motion to continue to a
Oh.
date certain, and it's in the motion that's in your staff report.
anybody find the motion?
I did, you want me to go ahead?
Okay, yeah, Margie?
I move to continue the public hearing.
Excuse me, before we start, is there any public, I think we should ask if there's any public comment on this before we,
Oh, before we do that, okay, is there any public comment? Pam?
My name is Pam Chadbourne, I live a block and a half from here. I have a point of clarification, and that is, will we have public comment when in the continuation? Because wasn't this the issue with vinyl windows? And I really want to know whether they're vinyl or not. So I need the applicant's presentation before I can speak. Thanks.
Okay, so we'll have public comment next meeting where anybody could speak and they can look at the packet.
before any decision is made, there will have to be public comment.
Yeah, always public comment.
And there will be a presentation, so we do have new information from the applicant.
Okay.
That was included in your packet this time. They're going to bring additional information next time they'll provide, and we'll provide that in your packet as part of the staff communication.
So make sure we look at the updated
Right,
packet.
exactly.
Okay,
Because they are responding to your request last time in terms of, are there examples of these windows other places? Do we know that they hold up? Yeah. Have they kind of the detail that we're looking for in terms of historic windows? So that's what they're looking for in terms of information. That's what we'll be providing next time.
okay, taking our comments. All right, Margie?
I move to continue the public hearing on HPB Resolution 07-2016, approving the Certificate of Historic Appropriateness for the Bachelor A building at 2565 and 2579 West Main Street, until the next regular board meeting, April 17th of 2017.
Second motion.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Okay, go ahead and vote, and then we'll turn this on. Okay.
All right,
motion
vote
carried.
unanimous, motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, so, Dennis, comments from staff?
Sure, a couple things.
More? We only have two, Dennis.
Dennis.
We need more.
Just got two.
Oh, sorry. Okay, there we go.
Okay, thanks.
This is, last time we looked at a draft brochure for historic preservation itself and how to become a landmark. This is a general one. One of the things you mentioned was, can we have something we just hand out that talks about historic preservation? So this is just a first take, and I wanted to get your sense, am I on the right track? It's an FYI in terms of go through the history of Littleton and talk a little bit more about, what the history is. A lot of this is on the website, but I think it might be fun to have a handout as well. And I've added to it, taken some things away and added some things. But then we'll get into other categories, other information, like the Historical Preservation Board and what the process is, and what you guys have accomplished over the years. So we'll talk about, what is the history of historic preservation in the city.
So this is for the public, not
This is for the
just
public,
the
right.
district, and this is just part of it.
This is just part of it, so I just want to make sure before I went any farther, is this kind of what you had in mind in terms of what you'd like to hand out and other ideas you might have? If you look on the right-hand side of the backside, it says other potential topics. So we'll be talking, again, chronologically, Chatfield Dam and South Platte Park, things that have made Littleton unique and things that have been major accomplishments, and it kind of led to the history of who we are. And then creation of the districts and by date, and then topics without dates, things like annexation, just in terms of how we expanded over the years. A list of examples of individual landmarks, list of examples of significant restoration projects that have gone on over the years, historic walking tours, mention those, and also talk about just kind of where we are currently with what's the city look like now in terms of annexations and our boundaries. And I guess the question is, are there other graphics, other topics that you think might be useful? And this it's going to be larger than the brochures we've had before. At the rate we're going here, it's not going to be 4 sides, it's going to be 8 sides or something probably. So.
Do you have an update of the one we looked at last time?
No, I do not yet. No.
I think this would be a great handout. I mean, I haven't obviously read the whole thing, but I think it'd be very interesting for the public to see this. And
And again, before this goes down, we'll have Kelly and her crew look at it to make sure that we have a final edit before it goes out, before we print them.
And so here's a list of potential topics, some of the things you're going to add about Historical Preservation
Right.
Board.
And this may be too much, for a brochure. We may want to eliminate some of this. as
So
we go.
there is a lot of text. I mean, and I guess you're saying it may be an 8-sider.
Right.
I don't know, I'm more of a picture guy, but,
More graphics, okay?
yeah. But I'm not sure what those graphics would be yet.
Right, I mean, that's the issue for some of this. But certainly, particularly the back side there, it's all text at this point, but I will be adding, so the thought is it would look more like the front, I think, in terms of, a combination of graphics and text.
yeah.
So.
My initial thought is to have a little less of the facts and maybe some other of attributes like a little bit about Historic Preservation Board or
Okay.
current current historic programs like the walking tours and what we have on the website. I don't know, just a list of facts isn't always what people read.
is this meant, and without having read it, more a history of Littleton, or are we talking about some of the benefits, some of the things that the Historical Preservation Board has accomplished?
Well, I think,
Like
you're right.
grants and COAs, and what does that mean?
I think it's a balancing act between the two, in my mind, but that's what I wanted to hear from the board, is I think that, I think the history is kind of fascinating myself, so I love, seeing, some of the early history in terms of the dates and when things happened and what that means relative to what else was going on in the world. But I agree, I think a lot of it has to be, and that's not in here yet, is kind of the accomplishments in terms of what are the landmarks, what are the districts, what are the major restoration projects that have occurred. I think the walking tours is a great one to put in here.
And what does the Historical Preservation Board do?
Absolutely.
I think that would be interesting to the
Okay,
public,
good.
so they understand all of the positive things.
Yeah, I mean, the mission statement alone, and I like the idea of this grants. and
Talk
this-
about the grants, talk about the COAs.
COAs.
And what does, I mean, very, very briefly, what does a COA mean?
Right. Also, I like the idea of the landmarks, to know what's
Yeah.
landmarks.
We recommend landmark designation to the city council.
And then we recommend landmark designation to the city council. And then what does that mean? What is a landmark? What really happens with it? And what are some of the landmarks that currently exist in the community?
Okay.
Well, as a historian that is writing a history of a community, I'm looking at this and thinking, oh, this is great. I love this. And I'd love to see the annexation maps. But Yeah, I agree. It needs to be less kind of the big picture, you know, the golden spikes driven in the railroad at this time, and more the nuts and bolts of historic preservation and what it means. And some examples of things that have been done in the community that really enhance the historic flavor. And the railroad, the grade separation is really key.
I think it is too. I think the restoration of Town Hall, I think the restoration of the library, the courthouse, Bemis House, all those things I think are really essential in terms of kind of thinking how much of a commitment the city has made. So.
And you can do some before and afters too, not so much the before of what the town looked like in 1910, but what the downtown looked like with those pods, you know, and really taking the town back to its historic core.
Okay. And as an aside, if you do want to see annexation maps, Jocelyn has some great maps made. Yeah, so
I love annexation
they're really
maps.
fantastic. Yeah.
We're giving you so much information. Also, the infographic kind of thing, you know, the timeline
Okay, good.
Yeah.
people now are into pictures and they're into like, you know, what is it?
Okay.
Tweets. Very short. And we've given you so much information to condense it all.
We're up to 16 pages, but that's
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that might be a bit much.
But I think people would be interested in reading that.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
I
think so,
wouldn't
too.
worry about it being
Oh, I would.
too long.
Yeah.
I mean, people can,
I mean, even this one has kind of pictures and,
Well, I might err on the side of too much and then let you guys,
Yes.
Oh, and
help
cut
edit.
it.
So,
And one thing just along that, a couple things along those lines, you know, this was a big manufacturing area during World War II. And not only what the manufacturing facility was, what they made, where it was, the physical location, what is the address today? If I could go and stand and look at what's there today, and a photo of it, those kinds of things are always interesting. And I don't see Marathon Oil. Marathon, that's Littleton, isn't it?
yeah, it should, it definitely, it should be
that
in
was a
here.
big
If it's
deal.
not, yeah, definitely. So, I will add that for sure.
well, that's not part of the historic district, though.
No, but I think
but
we were
it's
talking about
Littleton.
just the growth of Littleton. So we've got Norgren in here, we've got Martin, and we should definitely have, Marathon as well. So, okay, good.
What about the Loudon district? You know, it's not just, if we're going to go outside of downtown, that there's historic districts, Arapahoe
I
Hills.
think it's on here, creation of the Loudon Heights Historic
Okay.
District.
Yep.
Got it. So we want to include that one, too. Okay. Oh, Arapahoe Hills right here, right in front of me. Is that enough to,
Oh, yeah, that's great. No, good, I appreciate that.
When are you anticipating, like, having this
I
live?
think by the first time you guys have to go out, so it may be, I think the first council, if we have it in May, that'd be great, I think, for National Historic Preservation Month. It may be for the first city council outreach, which is maybe in May as well. I'm not sure when the first one is.
because we have our walking tour the first week in May, it'd be really nice. I mean, I know that's a lot of work between now and then.
Okay, that's good.
Okay, anything else about that? Okay,
No, this
Dennis,
is-
what
this
else
is-
did you
This
have?
is fun to work on, so.
Okay.
Yeah, this is really neat.
Let's see. Josh, you want to talk about the new members at all in terms of what we'll be doing in May? The board has decided, so we'll be talking about that more and introducing in April. First meeting in April, you will actually have the new members here, so, as all the boards will. And let's see what else. I think that's it for me at this point, I can think of, so.
Okay, well, we had some things. First and foremost, the tours.
Yes.
We need to,
Let me talk about
Yeah.
the tours.
tours.
So this is a draft of just to show you some of the marketing that's going on. Because Becky Grubb from the city, who is the city communications manager, is that her title, is doing a lot of promotion for this. And this is the poster, you know, that goes up all over town. And you can see here in the top, Art Walk and History Tours. Downtown Littleton, this is a very brief thing. So this will be going out. She's also working on postcards that will go, they'll be distributed everywhere. That'll have, I don't know if you remember the last year's, but it has the map and all the participants. And Sudie Floyd with Outnumbered Gallery is really working hard on the Art Walk side of it. She kind of originated it. And she is getting tremendous participation this year. Lots of restaurants, a lot more than last year, lots of merchants. And she's also bringing in outside artists and setting up an area in Littletown, in the Littletown building that's vacant. So that I think it's going to draw a lot of people. So there'll be a lot of publicity going on with that.
So far, I haven't seen where people are supposed to meet.
That'll be on the postcard.
Okay, and
It'll
so,
be on Littleton Rocks. It'll be in Littleton Report.
and Littleton Report, okay. Do we know where we're supposed to meet?
Yeah, well, this is my next thing. We need to set some dates for practice, and I can't remember who all from the board wanted to be involved in giving
I think
the
it
tour.
was me, Dan, Mike.
Okay, so we're all here.
Yeah, David.
And what
Oh,
I'm,
Ted said too.
what I'm thinking of, and here's a question to you guys. If I need to, since I will not be on the Historic Preservation Board, can I email 4 members of HPB from me to them?
I would think so, as long as I would do it as a BCC, I think, so they can't email themselves. It'd be better if you email it to me and I'll send it out, probably. That's typically what we do. So if you just send it to me and I'll
So
distribute.
should I do that? Because I also need to put the HLI members on it, so it'll be email just confirming our dates to both HLI and HPB.
And you want-
So as a citizen,
I will be a citizen then.
you can
yes.
email 4 members of HPB. HPB cannot respond copying those 4 members, otherwise it's a
So we
public
just
meeting.
copy her and
So
say,
they
yes,
just-
it'll work for us.
Answer me individually.
Answer her individually, correct?
Okay,
So
don't reply all,
Reply
in other
all,
words.
and then suddenly it's a public meeting, so let's not do that.
Okay.
Then that brings up my next question. If we're doing these practices, and there's 4 members of the Historic Board doing the practices, is that a public meeting?
We have to
We'll need to
post.
notice those, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
you'll need to post
So we need to
those.
know that, the date in advance, far enough
The
in advance.
sooner
so we
you can get
notice.
those, the better.
Well, and here's what I thought, maybe tonight we can do this, because this works. Tuesday nights work really well for HLI. And I'm going to set up 2 of them, so you can either come to both of them or one or the other. So I was thinking, the first tour is May 5th. So I was thinking April 18th and 25th, which are 2 Tuesdays in a row.
Tuesdays I can't do, I think.
You can't do Tuesdays?
Yeah, I have, well, let's see, April,
And I'm thinking like 5:30.
those are the 2 days I can't do.
Can you do May 2nd? That'll be the Tuesday before.
No,
So you can't do any of those.
I have class on Tuesday. Just signed up.
What about Wednesday? Mondays and Thursdays are out. Does
The Wednesday.
Wednesdays work for you guys?
And maybe you can do one on Wednesday, one on Tuesday, would that be,
Well, I could do that.
yeah, so not everybody has to change their schedule for me.
So maybe I could do Tuesday.
I'm sorry, may I make a suggestion?
Yes.
Okay,
That I
so-
don't discuss this right now.
If there is the more than 3 people meeting, for a public meeting, I just need about 24, 48 hours in advance notice in order to put something on the calendar.
Oh.
So that's not that bad. But Tuesday is when council meets, and you cannot meet at the same time as council
Really?
in the evening. So keep that
Well,
in mind.
They're not meeting,
So
Go
we
ahead,
need to
Jocelyn.
do Wednesdays
doing
then.
tours.
We're just doing a tour, yeah, we're not.
Can't,
I have a efficiency suggestion for the meeting this evening, and that would be, Margie, if you want to provide Dennis and I with the dates of potential, we can work those out. We can send them out to the folks that have offered to help, and we can help coordinate that way,
Okay.
just so that we don't have
but that's
to-
just an extra layer for you guys, I mean, if Margie
Not a
can
problem.
coordinate.
Well, because I need to coordinate with HLI as well.
Yeah, it's just easier
Wouldn't it be
not to
easier
go
for me
through
to
an
do it?
extra layer, as long as she's a citizen.
I'm a citizen and you just reply and not reply all. I mean, I'd rather do that.
Yeah, I would rather do it rather than have an extra layer.
That okay?
Just more, yeah. So we can't meet on Tuesday, so now that means the 19th and the
Okay.
26th? Which is fine.
You know what, let me send out an email rather than taking up time here. And I'll just suggest the Tuesday 18th and Wednesday the 26th. How's that?
Okay.
I'd
But-
like to ask, when will the official tour be? Is it
May
first
5th
Friday?
is the first one. It's the first Friday for 4 months.
Well, and we need an HLI person. I was going to do one of the first ones, and I've got the sign-up sheet here. And I haven't given it to HLI, so we need to do that.
Yeah, or we were thinking we'll just do 2 HPB and 2 HLIs the first night.
Are we doing 2? I thought they told me only 1 and 1.
Well, because we don't know how that's going to work, and they're 30 minutes. I think we'd be better off doing
You wanted
2
to do
and 2.
2? Okay.
The first one, we'll have to see how many people show up.
Okay, well, so Mike said he would come from, and then, so Mike and I can be there, and then
Okay.
2 from HLI. So at least we got 2 to start.
And I might be able to do that. That might be a date that works for me.
The thing about it is, if we have 15 people and we divide them into 3 groups, it's fine.
Yeah.
We don't need to keep them all together.
And it's going to be hard to fit, we just don't know. So for the night of May 5th, so Pam and Mike will do May 5th. And remember, there's 4 nights.
Right.
So
Here, I'll
there's
send the,
May, June, July, and
I'll
August.
send the form, and I'll also send the form for Western Welcome.
So I'll take care of getting emails out on the tours, and we'll go for Tuesday 18th and Wednesday the 26th of April
Okay.
For training?
for training.
Put me on that email. I might be able to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I might,
On the email will be Pam, Mike, Kim, and Dan.
well, and
Spratlin and Heidi.
David
All
and
wanted-
Ted, so everybody. And the more the better, because we also need
How
backup
about
people.
if I do
can't-
all of you, and then that way if you
July's
want to
the
do,
only
Right.
thing
do
available.
all.
Still not clear on the dates.
Okay, so,
So we'll do all of the practices, but for
Yeah,
May
I hope
5th,
so.
Pam and Mike for sure. And that way, if I send it out to you and send it out to HLI, I would rather do
Yes.
that, if that works. Okay.
Then staff's request would be, once you figure that out, Margie, can you send it to us so we know what we need to notice for
Yeah.
meetings? Okay,
I'll
thanks.
CC you guys on everything.
yeah, and we need logistics, like where are we meeting and,
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's-
The courthouse steps.
oh, okay, so we're all starting.
And
For both
anything
sides?
else, Margie, that you need us to help with, we can help coordinate that too, so we can do it with email and
Okay.
discussion.
I thought we were starting it opposite. The logistics are still not clear to me. We can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just be mindful of the council calendar, so if we're going to do it Tuesday, that's fine, as long as it's not council's the same night.
Okay.
So you have to
If
check.
if there is an actual meeting, 3 or more people, nope, can't do it the same night as council.
Okay, even something like this. Okay.
Something that's over by 6:30?
If it's over by the time council starts, you can do it. The code is such that we can't have a public meeting the same time as council, as you're therefore depriving people from being able to attend council. So it just is what it is.
Okay. All right, so you have to check and see if there's a meeting on the 18th for council. 'Cause council.
Otherwise, we'll have them on Wednesdays.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Anything else with
And a
that?
lot of the logistics we can talk about when we train, like
Okay.
how we're going to.
Where we're going to meet and how the opposite ends in the 30 minutes
Yeah.
and all that stuff. Okay. Anything else?
I need to talk about the Historic Preservation Awards. Do you need?
Yeah, why don't you keep going?
Want me to keep
Awards.
going? Are there any other questions about the tours that you guys have questions on? We can talk
Everybody
about
has
them.
their,
When we meet, we can talk about it too. Okay. On the Historic Preservation Awards, I need to get you guys' approval on who, Rebecca Cass and I have worked on the slate of recipients. So the award of Outstanding Achievement, we wanted to give to Bristlecone Construction for their offices and for the alley. There's only 3 we're doing this year. The award of stewardship to the City of Littleton City Council, because the city owns the Bemis Library, the Geneva House, the 2 depots, Town Hall, plus they give the grant money, plus they formed the district, plus they did the HP. I mean, we can go on and on by what the city of Littleton has done as stewardship of historic assets. Any objections?
Kim?
Well, it seems like, it's just basically Historic Preservation Board is set up by the city, giving an award to the city.
Well, we've already gone through that,
Well,
and we got
okay.
approval on that.
If you guys
Because I
are
was
okay with
concerned about
that,
that. I wanted to make sure we were okay with that.
If I may
And
interrupt,
we are.
this would require a vote, and it's not noticed on the agenda, so I think it's something we can talk about at the moment.
What are you saying?
What you're speaking of is general business. It was not noticed on the agenda. Therefore, it's not something we can discuss at this time.
Well, it's, we're not voting, are we?
No.
She's just informing. Because these are HLI awards.
Oh, okay.
This is
Not-
HLI.
Oh,
She's-
HLI and
Preservation Board.
HPB. But I really need to get approval so we can move
Oh,
forward.
now, and he's
She
telling
needs,
us,
if she needs approval, that requires a vote, and it's something we cannot do.
because we didn't put it in general business?
Correct. It was not noticed.
How do I need to go forward then? Because I can't do it by email either, and I can't wait a whole nother month.
Can someone else bring it forward next meeting? We can't do it without it being noticed.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure what to do now. Maybe we don't need to have approval.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an HLI thing.
Right. Well, in HLI, okay, the final decision in HLI, but we would like, the presentations have always been given by the chair of HPB and the chair of HLI, but that's still, as long as HLI is,
Just let HLI make the presentation?
you know what, why don't I work it out outside of this meeting?
You can make a presentation. You just can't take any official action as a board without having it being noticed.
Okay.
So if you want to approve something, whatever that may be, you cannot do that without notice. If you just want to give a presentation, that's not an official action by the board, and therefore doesn't require any sort of public hearing or a vote or a notice.
Okay. Well, let me just tell you this then. The awards are May 4th at the Littleton Museum at 6:30. Okay. Okay, then I guess that's all I have.
Okay, so we can talk about that more offline, about presentations.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, or I would have had you put it on the agenda. I had
Yeah,
realized
we
that.
didn't know. Anything else, Margie?
That's it.
Okay. Okay, another thing I wanted to address is, this is the post office. Somebody from the post office contacted me, and I don't know if they have enough authority, that they want to talk about landmark designation. And we talked about this in the HLI meeting, so.
And
Because
HLI
it's a government building, and obviously this person's not an owner, I just didn't know how to proceed, so I guess I need to look to staff to give some coaching on how we should proceed.
Dennis, can you please talk on the microphone? We're having, yep, thank you.
That's the problem. So I was going to say, I was saying Diane Ray, who did the designation for the Englewood Post Office, has been out of town. I've not had a chance to talk to her, but she's back, and so I will talk to her about this and just see what the process was. If we need to go through, the senators, or because the post office is now kind of arm's length, from the government, I'm not sure exactly how we do it, but we have other post offices that have been designated. I think typically they're national designation, but Englewood, I believe, was local, so we'll proceed and see.
Okay.
I know that we have other post offices that have been designated, but typically they're closed, I think, like the one in Fort Collins, which is repurposed, and so, but I'll find out more and let you know.
Okay, I have not responded to that person, so I'll let them know what the process is and copy you.
Okay.
I might add too that HLI is pretty deep into this.
Yeah.
So probably it should be coordinated. You know, Jim Taylor is actually, I believe, talked to Mike Kaufman.
And again, I think
Mike Kaufman is
see if
all-
Brandon and Lena kind of comment too. I think we have to be kind of careful. It seems like HLI could be the applicant. I think the board, because you are the body that will actually review this, if you decide to do a local designation, you'll make the recommendation on that to City Council. And so I think we need to stand back from our side, but we certainly can identify process and how to proceed as we do with every other landmark designation in town and find out who the key players are and what we need to do.
So how do we make sure we're coordinated with HLI?
I'm just trying to think. Mike, are you going to be able to go to HLI meetings? They're the third one.
I'll be able to go to the next one, I believe.
Oh, I think maybe through Mike reporting back here.
Let me know if you can't go, I can be your alternate, but I don't want to go, I went to that one meeting, but I don't want to go just double up if you're not going to be there, so,
But
okay.
I think as long as there's an HPB liaison at the meetings, you'll get the input. But I think it is moving forward through HLI, so I'm not sure.
So they're the
when-
applicant.
Well-
They possibly could be the applicant. I don't know if that's the case. We need to find out, but they certainly could be
That'll
the
be
advocate for
interesting.
it, so.
And we'll have to find out who was the applicant for Inglewood.
Right.
Okay, all right, so,
I need to talk to the state too and see, I'm sure we've had others throughout the state that have gone through a similar process, so we'll find out.
okay, I'll tell them it has come to our attention and that somebody has been working on it and this is what we're doing. Okay.
Right.
And I've talked to Sonia a little bit about it too as well. She called, so.
Sonia's in the loop as well,
Okay,
and Jim Taylor,
and Jim Taylor and Sonia.
who's at HLI.
Yeah, because at the meeting we were at, we talked about it. Okay, also, we were invited by city, I guess it was city council to be at the interviews for the city attorney. I thought it was the city manager.
City attorney, sounds like there's all-day meetings on the 31st of.
March 31st.
March 31st.
Yeah, there is an all-day interview process. There's going to be 3 panels, and they are looking for a chair from each of the boards.
And I could not attend because I'm working,
So
but Dan.
they
is-
asked then for the vice chair.
Yeah, so Dan's going to attend, and he already RSVP'd to the person who contacted me, just so everybody knows, and I think it's very exciting that we're going to be included in that process. And it would be, could we be also included in the city manager process, or is that too far along? That's city council?
The city manager process is already solidified.
Okay, all right. The conversations that Mike and Kim went to, do you want to give us a quick update on that for to the rest of the group?
Sure. On March 9th, Kim and I attended Community Conversation, which is located in a room near Solid Grounds on South Broadway, and hosted by Carol Brizek, and there were 14 attendees. We went as private citizens who happened to be HP members, but we didn't speak in any official capacity for the city. We discussed HP's role in the community and made the distinction between HPB and HLI so that they understood, the different roles that we have. Had a very lively discussion about many, many different topics, including Littleton mixed use, the Grove, downtown, HP in general, kind of what we do, how we do it, and how a COA is brought to us and how we look at that and how we act as a quasi-judicial body to either approve or deny that. We talked in general terms about what our role is in preservation in Littleton, and we talked about a lot of the items that are on our work list, including Littleton Boulevard, because there's a great concern about the citizenry about the future of Littleton Boulevard and preservation on Littleton Boulevard, and how buildings are landmarked. And we talked about how HLI generally provides the landmark recommendation, or, private citizens can do that, but then we act as an adjudicative body to do that. Talked a little bit about Main Street Historic District and the success that Dennis has had with bringing, new buildings in every year. Talked about the grant program and how successful that's been in terms of attracting new property owners to join the district, and it's made a meaningful difference for a lot of the property owners there. Many of the attendees had attended or watched our meetings on TV, and they were particularly appreciative of the way Chair Grove handles herself and handles us and handles the meeting. And so just wanted to give you a little shout out, Pam. It was very nice of them. Everybody uniformly felt that way. And yeah, like that's about it, I think. And Kim attended with me, and we had a wonderful time. Good group of people.
One thing that came up that I thought was rather interesting, I guess Doug Clark was there?
Doug was there. Peggy Cole was there too.
Pardon?
And Peggy Cole.
And Peggy Cole.
Was there.
Is the parking issue. And Pam, this is something that you've mentioned many times before, and because we have the exception. And in a conversation I had with Dennis right before the meeting, he gave me some perspective. And this comes up a lot from the public. It comes up from city council. How many city council meetings have we been in where parking comes up? So I think we need to understand it better. And my thought is that we understand it to the point we can deliver a message to the community and to council about what authority we do and don't have. So Dennis, do you want to address that?
Sure, and Jocelyn can correct me and chime in too as we go. The couple of bottom lines, the primary point I think is that parking is exceedingly complex, partially because we have requirements in the zoning that outline what your parking requirements are for any particular use, and so that kind of sets the standard across the city in terms of what we're looking at. But to really think about downtown and where parking waivers have been given and what's been, it's a fairly complex issue because part of it's through the Historic Preservation Program and part of it's through zoning waivers and that we've had historically. So it's this complex set. And as we go forward and really think parking in the future, we really need to think about, what are we looking at in terms of build-up? What are we looking at in terms of timing? What are we looking about who pays for parking? What should the parking requirements be? What's the appropriate level that people should be asked to provide on-site or off-site? And it's off-site, how do we pay for that? On-site doesn't work for most properties downtown. You can't apply the parking standards that we have. So Jocelyn's been looking at parking. She's going to be talking to council again about parking, and it's part of the program that we have for the station area master plan for downtown that we're looking at starting by the end of 2017. And so it's all that comes together, but the thought is it's under the purview of the city code, and so it's nothing that HPP can change. You can certainly chime in, and we want you to participate because you're a key player in those formulas, but it's a larger discussion that has to be codified at some point and show up in the zoning as how does this work. So that kind of, does that help? Jocelyn, am I missing anything on that?
I guess I would just add to that something slightly different. And actually, tomorrow night, it's timely that you're asking the question. Tomorrow night is study session with City Council, and one of the topics that staff is bringing forward is primarily about community engagement and how we want to reset how we've been doing community engagement in Littleton. And the first topic we are going to choose, because we've had a lot of comment from the public recently about parking in downtown. So if council agrees with moving that forward, I can certainly share with you to invite you all as citizens and people who live in our community are invested in it into that conversation. And the idea is that it's not already figured out what would happen or even what the issues are, but it's really to have a community conversation at the beginning to identify issues, and that's then how we work through bringing things forward and having council give direction on how to address those issues.
So this is basically a code issue. It's the preview of city council, which if invited, we could provide input because of the waiver issue, but it's not something we can vote on or do anything about.
If you're specifically asking about the city code right now, that's in the code, that's correct.
But it's not anything that Preservation Board can change,
At tonight, no.
ever.
No, I wouldn't say that's true.
How might Preservation Board change it, for instance?
So it's my understanding that the board, you meet with city council periodically, twice a year at least. And those are how you bring issues to the council that you feel as a board are important. So that would be one avenue you would have directly to communicate that with council, if that's what you're asking.
So HPB, like any other board or like any other citizen in Littleton, can provide input to city council regarding parking. But parking is really in the city code, and that is the purview of city council. They have the power to change that. HPB does not.
And I don't even think
For amendments to the code, yes, if that's what you're saying.
I don't think city council knows that, because city council in practically every joint meeting asks us about parking. So if they ask us about parking, we should be prepared to give our input, but that's all we can do.
Agreed, so it's not, I don't.
Yeah, I think what City Council may be asking to, and you and I didn't talk about this earlier, is we think of parking as an incentive. The parking reduction is an incentive for HPP. And so when council talks to us about parking, I think they may be thinking, is this an effective incentive for the board and for getting people in the district? Are there other incentives that you could be? So I think from that standpoint, that's probably what they're looking to the board for, is how does this function for your purposes?
It's not usually that focused, so maybe good thought that we help focus that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that clarifies, because the conversation is usually pretty general when we talk about them, and since it came up in that meeting, and Doug Clark mentioned that it's a code issue and it's not something we have direct control of, could maybe have input. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Does that make sense? So we all have the same message, that this is something that we can definitely discuss as an incentive, but in terms of any broad-reaching changes, all we can do is give some input about the historical piece of it and not make any changes. Is that clear? Okay. Let's see. Anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
I have one more thing. I think you guys know that this is my last meeting.
I know,
And
after 9 years.
I want to say that it's been an honor and a privilege to serve on the Historic Preservation Board and to work with the staff, and the board members throughout the years have been very, very great to work with. And Dennis, you've done a fabulous job in the 10 years I've been on the board. So I will miss all of you, and we'll see where I go from now.
HLI.
I'll be on HLI. But it's been definitely an honor and a privilege to be on the board.
Well, and yeah, from our standpoint too, Margaret, you've just been such an asset. We really appreciate your energy, your insight. You just bring so much to the cause, and you're a tremendously important member. And the willingness to step up and be chair multiple times and head committees and do projects has been phenomenal. So we really, really appreciate it. And we're so thrilled that you're going to be on the HLI board. I think such a great transition. So thank you.
You will be missed.
Well,
Definitely.
Thank you. I will miss being here.
Anything else before we adjourn?
I was hoping we could revamp how packets are distributed. Ever since we've gone to city email, I have not, I know we're supposed to check city email, but the problem is the way it's set up. We're unable to forward that to another email account to check. So, for instance, the last 4 packets I haven't gotten until like the afternoon before the meeting, which when you're looking at 110 sheets or with the Littleton Mixed Use Project, that's a massive packet. When you only get it the afternoon before, it's pretty hard to review thoroughly. And I feel that was a big problem with the Littleton mixed-use project, at least on my end, because I couldn't come as prepared as I liked to have been. And I know there was correspondence that was made available that I didn't get until the meeting. So again, it just puts me as a board member in a bad position. And I don't know if you can at least put a notice and say, hey, it's been posted. I mean, can you do that to our personal email? I know we can't communicate through there, but can you just say?
You know, actually, I've worked with some other board members with our IS or IT department to connect that. So we can follow up with you on how to get your city email forwarded to you so that at least you know you need to check.
I tried when we
So-
first went there and they said it wasn't possible. So if
But
you could,
we've created, well, I'm not sure when that was or
Okay.
what that was, but I know I've helped some planning commissioners get.
That would be
figure out- So
helpful.
certainly we can offer that.
that would be helpful
Yeah.
because,
And I believe when we send the emails, we always offer, and it's always that Thursday prior to the meeting, so you know it's always that day. But we always also ask if you want paper, we're happy to make that a packet to hand out for you too. So just make sure that
You
that's
have to
clear
come
as
pick it
well.
up, that's the only thing. You have to make arrangements to have it printed and picked up.
I mean, we're pretty flexible, so just ask.
Yeah, I mean, I did it
That's
for
all.
the
I'm just
mixed-use
saying.
project because I wanted the big pieces of paper. And also, it's posted on Thursday and Friday. You can go straight to the website.
I understand if I was that organized and I'm not working 60 hours a week, it'd be beneficial to do that. But
You need the email.
if I'm going to remain a board member, I need at least a better way of being notified because I'm the first to admit I'm not that organized to go look the 3 days before. I'm trying to get done the stuff I need to get done. And
So who do we email if we want it printed out? Denise? Okay. Yeah, like I say, I did that.
I mean, I always want it printed because these packets are so huge that
Can you go by and get it on Friday? It's hard.
So we can, honestly, you guys, we don't need to have this in the meeting. We can follow up with you. If you need us to bring the thing somewhere or put it somewhere, I mean, good grief. Staff is here to support you, to
We
make
used
sure
to do
your
that.
role. I'm not
Dennis
gonna-
used to
I
drop 'em
understand
off.
that. So that wasn't necessarily efficient, but I'm not saying that we can't help you. So that is certainly our goal, to make sure you feel 100% prepared for the discussion and for the agenda items for your meeting. So again, we can talk about what those
Okay.
needs are and how to help you.
yeah, if we can get the emails forwarded, that'd be a great start. I don't mind looking at it electronically, but it's just getting it the day of the meeting is hard. And I admit it's partly my problem, but it's been the fact.
And I guess the other thing I would offer, if anyone has any issues, you don't have to wait to this forum or this meeting to ask staff. So honestly, you can ask us, email us. We are here to support you. And, you know, it doesn't have to just be at this meeting. If you're like, you know what, this is bugging me, or I don't understand this, call us. That's also a role that we have to support
Thank
you.
you. Thank you, Jocelyn. Okay, so we'll get that worked out. Okay. Anything else? Let's go ahead and adjourn the meeting then.